So just remember, when we listen to a talk, we listen with our heart. We do not send our thoughts outside. We not do or observe the speaker speaking, but we observe how the words arise within our own heart. If we listen to Dhamma in this way, that's where we can learn more. When we look at what has been written about the Dhamma of the Lord Buddha, it fills quite a few books. But when we look what is necessary to go along the path that the Lord Buddha teaches, it's very little. So there's not a lot that we need to remember. When we want to practice, there are only a few things that we need to know. Most of the things we need to do, we actually need to implement. So there are the Four Noble Truths. The first noble truth, that there is dukkha. Dukkha is not only suffering. Dukkha is any kind of dis-ease, restlessness, pain, unease, and so on. Everything this is called dukkha. Dukkha, you can actually think of a container starting with just restlessness, going on to dis-ease or unease, discomfort, and so on, until pain and the biggest suffering, be it mental suffering or physical suffering. This is all called dukkha. And we can all verify this noble truth within ourselves, within our own life. Most of the time we do experience some of this dukkha. There are only a few times where we experience just the opposite. That is called sukha. Joy, pleasantness, and so on. The second of the Noble Truths tells us the origin of dukkha. The origin of dukkha is tanha, the desire to be, the desire to become, the desire not to be, the desire to change, and so on, and so on. Desire itself, that is the source of our dukkha. If we wouldn't desire anything anymore, we would not experience any dukkha. If we desire that the pain goes away, this is also the desire that creates dukkha. If pain comes and we just stay with it, then we can be at peace. We can be at ease, completely at ease. But our desire is that the pain goes away. Or our desire is that pleasant feelings are coming. Or our desire is to become this person or that person, to become this profession or that profession. Or some people have the desire not to exist anymore. It's all desire, and that all leads to dukkha. So this is the reason why we experience dukkha. A person who doesn't have any more desires, who doesn't have any more tanha, he will not experience dukkha anymore. The third of the Noble Truth is just a comforting statement that there is a way to the end of dukkha. And the fourth Noble Truth is that what we are focusing on right here now in this monastery. That is the way that leads out of dukkha. The way that leads out of dukkha is comprised of three columns. The first column is Sila. Sila means morality, precepts. When we are here in this monastery, we keep the 5 precepts. Normally as lay people, you are advised to keep the 5 precepts even when you are outside in the world. We do here one more thing, not only keeping the 5 precepts, but we do separate the women and the men. Women cannot talk with men, and men are not allowed to talk with women, as long as they are here to practice. No mixing up the sexes. That is a little bit more than the 5 silas. The 5 precepts, in short, not to harm any living being. The second one, not to take what is not given. The third one, not to lie or use harsh speech. Harsh speech means speech that harms other people, other beings. The 4th precept, no sexual misconduct, and in our case it's no sexual behavior at all. And the 5th precept, no alcohol and no drugs. Alcohol and drugs that take away our mindfulness. The 5 precepts are the basis for a Buddhist life outside, and are the basis for our practice. Without keeping the 5 precepts, we cannot develop the other 2 columns on the path. The other 2 columns is samadhi and panya. Samadhi is calm and mindfulness, and panya is wisdom. Wisdom, do not mix it up with knowledge. If we could know the truth, we could be all liberated by now and we wouldn't need to practice. We could all learn it from books, but that is not wisdom, this is just knowledge. Wisdom is a kind of knowing that arises within our very own heart, or it arises within our very own chitta. That's where wisdom arises. We could call it insight. Seeing inside our own true nature. That's where wisdom arises. Or that's where wisdom actually is. That's where wisdom actually resides. And with an insight, we have a short moment where we can see the truth. That is very different from knowledge. Knowledge is, we read something, we understand something, or we derive some knowledge based on some other memories. That is very different from wisdom. So we do not develop knowledge. If we would need only knowledge to get free of dukkha, then there wouldn't be any necessity for us to train sitting in samadhi or walking chongkrom or walking meditation. We just would read enough books, and after we read enough books, we might take a test and then we pass it. That, sorry to say, that is not the way. The path of practice is the path of training the mind. Being able to make the mind one's own tool, and not leave it up to the kilesas to take up our mind and do whatever they want. That is what the situation we are in just right now. The kilesas take up the mind and say, I want this, I don't want this, I want that, I don't want that, and so on and so on. I want to do this, so I'm going to do it. I want to do that, so I'm going to do it. That's the sound of the kilesas, that's the voice of the kilesas, or that's the command of the kilesas. Now, by training the mind is not buying into the voice or the commands of the kilesas, but training the mind to be our own mind. Just think of it our enemy has caught our most precious valuable and we want to gain it back. So we have to fight for it to get it back. And this is our tool, and we have to develop it. We have to develop it like anything else in this world. When we were born, we have to develop, first we had to develop to digest properly. After learning to digest food, we learned to walk, and then we learned to speak, and then we learned to think. And that took us about 15 to 20 years until we could properly do it. And it's the same thing with practice. It's just the same thing. We need some time to train the mind just to do the things that we want to do. So when I set my mind on Buddha, I want the mind to be on Buddha and not doing something else. Not even doing something else in the background. When I observe the breath at the tip of the nose, and that's the only point where we observe the breath, then I want the mind to observe the breath. Just that. And not thinking about this or thinking about that. That means training the mind. And you will see it is not easy. Because after 1 second or 2 seconds or 5 seconds or 5 minutes, the mind goes off and thinks about this and thinks about that. And then we have to bring it back. The moment the mind goes off, we bring it back to Buddha, or we bring it back to the breath. We do not worry where it went, we just grab its tail and bring it back to the object of attention. That is all what we need to do. It's the most simple work that we can imagine. There's no more simpler work in the world than this. Yet it is so difficult, because the mind is not willing to. It's just like catching a wild horse, and training it to do this and that. It takes a long time. The Lord Buddha compared training the mind with training an elephant. First you have to get it calm. It wants to break out all the time. So you tie it with a strong rope to a pole. And in our case this is tying the mind to this one object, just one object, the breath or the Buddha, and not allowing it to go off, to stroll outside, to take pleasures in this or take pleasures in that, to think about this or to think about that. So our rope has to be very strong, just to keep that elephant, or to keep our mind at the object of attention. Once the wild elephant notices that it cannot break out anymore, what does it do? It lies down and goes to sleep. And then it's exactly that's what we want to do with our mind. We want to get our mind to rest. Not to rest in sleep, in normal daily sleep, but to rest in a kind of samadhi. Samadhi means calm of mind. It actually can be compared to deep sleep when the mind really goes off. When the mind doesn't dream about this or dream about that. When the mind really shuts off. When it is not aware of what is outside. It doesn't catch any sounds or it doesn't catch anything else. So that is the second column, samadhi. We have to train. We have to train this mind to get calm. So the first step is to get beyond thoughts. So until the mind, we have to train the mind so long, being on that single object, that no other thoughts are coming in and disturbing us. That means going beyond thoughts. But that's not the end yet. Once the thought stops, then all the phenomena that we haven't seen before come in. And then we have to get rid of, or in better terms, we are not interested in all these phenomena that arise and keep concentrating on the Buddha, or keep concentrating on the breath until everything disappears. That means the breath disappears, the breath becomes so fine that we cannot catch it. Once the breath becomes so fine that we cannot catch it, we revert our attention, and it normally is there already. Our attention is already in the heart, so we revert to the one who knows that the breath is fine or it's not existent anymore. Once we revert our attention to that point, then our mind focuses in onto this knowingness. Focusing in on this knowingness and becoming one with this knowingness is one-pointedness. One-pointedness, nothing else can exist. Compared to the world, what happens in our experience is mostly that first the body will disappear. In the beginning, only parts of the body, the lower body disappears, and in the end, the rest of our body disappears from our awareness. Once the body disappears from our awareness, it is like the whole world or this whole universe disappears. And we enter one-pointedness. This is one of the first wonders that we can experience in meditation. Being one-pointed means there is no subject, there is no object. There is just what we are left with, there is just clear knowingness. And the whole world and the whole universe doesn't exist anymore. This is the deepest rest that we can have. It's deeper, and we are more refreshed, or our mind is more recharged with a lot of energy once we get out of this state. It is so fresh, it has so much energy that it can actually see through all the things. If we put them then on parts or on objects of investigation, it easily cuts through all the hindrances, it easily cuts through and sees the true nature of it. That's why we train samadhi. We train it for two purposes. We train it first to rest our mind. Everybody knows in the world if we do some work, we need to rest the body. Nobody ever fails in putting the body to sleep. But when have we put our mind, when was it the last time where we really have put our mind to sleep? Never. Most of you have never done that. So, can you imagine how tired the mind must be? We have never ever, this whole life, we have never ever put it to sleep. Not only this life, but the last life, and the last life, and the last life. So it's extremely tired. So the first time it really enters this, it really gets refreshed. And once it comes out, it just says, oh, wow. It's an experience that you will never ever forget within this life. It's something so extraordinary that we can't even put words to it. So all what is left, what we can describe it with, is just clear knowingness or emptiness or whatever. What actually is, it is called, in Pali it's called Appana Samadhi, or the deep state of Samadhi. And the deep state of Samadhi has an importance. It's not only the importance that we rest our mind and then after we come out, that the mind is sharp, extremely sharp. It's just like a sharp knife that cuts everything. Not like a blunt knife where we want to cut the tomatoes and the tomatoes just crush. They are not nice slices. It's extremely sharp. But it also shows us, this kind of deep samadhi also shows us, there is something beyond. Not only beyond what we see, it's beyond this whole universe. It's outside, it is something different from what we have ever experienced before. And Dhanaja Mahaboa calls this experience the Nibbana of the little man, or preview of Nibbana. Nibbana means extinction of all our desires, extinction of dukkha. And this is the first time where we can have a real preview. It's just a preview, but it still is worth it. That's where we can see. That's where we can experience for ourselves. And when we don't need to ask anybody when we come out of it, that it has been wonderful. We all know within ourselves that it has been wonderful. And most of us who experience it for the first time, they have only one wish. The moment they come out, they want to get back in. It's something so extraordinary. It's something so refreshing and cooling. It is like we have been in the hot sun or in the desert for all our life, and then we find an oasis where we can actually rest in the shade or take a bath in the cool water. And whoever wants to go back into the hot desert? Nobody. Nobody on its own will. But we are thrown back out into this world. So what we have to find, and that is, we have to find a way that leads us to this state of mind permanently. And the way to lead us to this state of mind permanently is the way of wisdom. Is the way of investigation, is the way of vipassana. Vipassana actually means just insight. Insight meditation. Now what do we have to investigate? We do not have to investigate the world. We do not have to investigate the objects of the world. All what we have to investigate are the 5 khandhas or the 5 groups that make us. These 5 khandhas that we have to investigate is formally, or most formally, is the body. Because that's what we are confronted all the time, 24 hours a day. We have to feed it, we have to wash it, we have to look after it. And wherever we go, we have to carry it with us. What a burden. So we are going to investigate the body. Once we are finished with the investigation of the body, we investigate feeling, Vedana. There are 3 kinds of feelings that we need to investigate. There are pleasant feelings, unpleasant feelings, and neutral feelings. Once we are done with this, we are going to investigate memory and associations, and thinking and consciousness. Because all of these, the mix of all these groups, or the mixing of all these groups, is that what we call us, it's that what we call I. So we have to understand its true nature. We have to understand that actually when I say I mean I refer to one of the group. I refer either to the memory, I refer to a thought, I refer to a feeling, or I refer to the body, or consciousness. Can you grasp this idea? We consist not, I is not a solid thing. I is made up of 5 components. And these 5 components, and the earlier you grasp this idea, the better. These 5 components are just body, feeling. You can distinguish not only feeling in the way of pleasant feeling, unpleasant feeling, neutral feelings, but you can distinguish between feelings, bodily feelings, and mental feelings. Then there are memories of our past, but not only memories, but it's everything what is called memories, every kind of label, every kind of association. When we see a tree, that is called memory. When we hear and say this is a chicken, that is called memory. All these things are called memory. Thoughts are just short forms of thoughts. And then consciousness. Consciousness is just something that we know that something has come into contact with our senses. That's all. That's all what they exist. The Lord Buddha teaches us that this whole universe is within this 6-foot-long body. It's not outside. But all our life, not only this life, but I'm talking now about only this life, we have looked outside to find something outside of us. We look for other people, we look for knowledge, we look for books, we look for this, we look for excitement outside. We never looked inside our heart where all these things arise. Now the path of practice, or the forest Dhamma, or the practice of the Lord Buddha, that is one synonym. The practice of the Fourth Noble Truth, of the path that leads to the end of dukkha, that is actually forest trade. Or forester. We are only interested in that. We are not interested in what is written there in this book, or what is written in that book, or what does this person say, or what does that person say. We are interested in keeping our sila, we are interested in training our samadhi and concentration and our awareness, mindfulness and awareness, and start with investigation. But before we can start with investigation, our mind has to become calm. It is just like if you want to cook, you prepared all your cooking ingredients, but now you need to cut them down. If the knife that you have is not sharp, you will not finish cooking. So we need to sharpen our knife before we actually can cut down. It is not helpful, just to squash all these things, all the ingredients of our cooking. We can't see what is inside if we just squash them. We need to really severely cut them up and see the nature of what is inside. So that is why we need samadhi. We need samadhi in order to train the mind to get really sharp. We need sati, or mindfulness, or awareness, to grab the object of investigation firmly so that it cannot snoop out, or it cannot get out of our hands, out of our attention. And then we start to investigate it. So before we actually can start doing our investigation, we need to train the mind to get calm, we need to train the mind to get sharp. And that is what we are going to do in the beginning. Although wisdom is the thing that will deliver us to freedom, without samadhi and without sila, we will never be able to do it. We will never be able to get insights that are deep enough to let us loose, or to cut down the fetters. When we do investigation, we are using 3 characteristics that are inherent to this universe. That is the law of anicca, anatta, and dukkha. Anicca means everything that arises must cease. It's the law of impermanence, it's the law that everything changes. Everything changes. Including the body, including this universe, including everything that we see, it's going to change. Just now we experience dukkha, the next moment we're going to experience just the opposite, sukha. Or in other terms, we experience unpleasant feelings, and then they will change to pleasant feelings. Or change to other unpleasant feelings, depending on the nature of our mind. This is one of the laws. The other law is anatta. Whenever we are confronted with something that we think is us, is ourselves, I feel lousy, or I feel depressed, or I'm not worth it, then we detach ourselves. Let's say, this is not me, that is not mine, this does not belong to me. Whatever I can observe cannot be me, because otherwise, who is the one who observes it? Who is the one who knows about that state of mind? Who knows about the feeling? Who knows about the thought? Who knows about the memory? Who is this one? That is more likely our true nature. So if that knows, then the feeling itself cannot be us. So we detach ourselves with this method of anatta. It's called anatta. That is not me, that does not belong to me, this is not myself. In the beginning of our practice, we really need it very heavily. We needed to put it whenever something is coming and grabbing us. Just to get a break, just to know that we are actually not the characters in the movie that we watch, that we are actually the person who sits down in the seat, and observes the movie. This we have to realize, this we have to understand. So this is the principle of anatta, and the principle of dukkha we already know. If we experience dukkha, then we always can say, this is the first noble truth. This is a noble truth. This is what the Lord Buddha says, every being, be it in heaven or be it in hell or be it a human being or an animal being or in the other realms, experiences dukkha. So, when we want to find a way out of dukkha, then we have to go along the path of practice, the path of sila, samadhi and panya. And if you do it correctly, then we will find the way out. No matter what we are. No matter if we are woman, no matter if we are man. It's not our outside that deters us from our practice. It's our effort that deters us from the goal. If we do not put in enough effort, we will not reach the goal. If we go to university and do not study enough, then we will not pass the test. We all know that, but because we want to finish it, that's why we put in effort. So if we want to finish the path to the end of dukkha, and if we put enough effort in, we will make it. There's no way that can deter us from our goal. If we have enough will, where there is a will, there is a way. I don't know if this idiom exists in English, but at least in German it does exist. If we do things wholeheartedly, we get wholehearted results. If we do things half-heartedly, we get half-hearted results. So if we put all our effort, and the effort is not to suppress anything or press anything down, but the effort is to constantly come back to our object of attention. That is where our effort is. That's where our determination is. Our determination is not to let come anything. Even if the house is burning or our kuti or our hut is burning, we still keep on the object of meditation. Nothing can let us go. Even if we are going to die in the process, or if you think we are going to die in the process, we are not letting go of our object of attention. If we are in the process of pain, we are not letting go of our object of attention. That is our determination that will lead us out of dukkha. That will lead us the way to the end of dukkha. So, and with this I end my talk.